thanks for joining me this afternoon, Harry.
Pleasure.
And can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the creative arts?
Yeah, on various levels, really. You'll know me as a poet, which I'm very active. I gig up and down the country and got various books and things out under various publishers. I'm also, my actual trade has been for 20 years now as an actor. I act and I also devise forum theatre in a training environment for people's skills. So it involves writing a basic script and then you improvise and involve the audience to a certain model. I do all sorts really. I'm also a singer-songwriter.
Right, brilliant. I didn't know that. So I'm involved in the theatre, so we'll have to pick up on that.
Yeah.
So has this been something throughout your whole life? Did you come from quite a creative background? At which point did you get involved?
I got involved, really, I started off, I've been in bands. I'm an old man now, I'm in my late 50s. I've been in bands since I was in my 20s, on and off, in fact, since before then, since I was in my teens. Always in and out of bands, writing songs, writing stuff, writing poetry from a very early age. And then in my late 20s, I got the acting bug on an amateur thing. The first thing I was ever in was in Stockton. I think it was called Bums on Seats, theatre company at the time, which was Shelley Plews who was directing this piece. And I just saw it advertised, got involved and absolutely loved it, but never thought in a million years I would do it for a living. But then I give it a few years because I thought, I'll never be able to do this. This is an amazing thing. And eventually drifted back to it, started doing it regularly as Amdram stuff, wrote a couple of plays around that time as well, was in one of them, directed the other. And gradually I had a kind of by this point I'm in my mid-30s, had to change of direction completely. I went back to college for 2 years on performing arts and went back out then touring as an actor. Getting on theatre and education tours, children's theatre stuff, and bits of TV and bits of filming, and eventually ended up doing this kind of thing that I do now, which is all sorts.
Brilliant. So you've managed to carve out a living for yourself out of the creative arts.
Yeah, I suppose I have. I don't know how it happened really, by accident, I think. You've just got to go for it. That's my experience anyway, and be as shameless as you want. There are all sorts of reasons why people won't want to hire you, which are often nothing to do with yourself. But what I've found is that you give people lots of different reasons to work with you, and you make the work as interesting and as good as you possibly can.
Well, that's tremendous advice.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if it'll work for anybody, but it worked for me.
Well, I kind of think there must be far more people out there making their living out of the creative arts than we realise, seeing as it is such a massive part of our national economy.
Well, I think we as a nation, not necessarily you and I, but as a nation, we really undervalue the arts. We kind of, because we have it such a rich part of our culture, we kind of have fallen into the trap of taking it for granted. But it doesn't come from nowhere. It does need nurturing and supporting and encouraging.
Well, absolutely. I was blown away when I found out, a couple of years ago that that the arts brings more to the economy than agriculture. It's just not the way that things are portrayed. I mean, it brings 40 times as much as the fisheries. And it's like the amount of power that the fishery industry seems to wield over our nation in comparison to the power that the collective power of the arts. And I think perhaps there's some kind of realization about that at the moment.
And you know what? I think I certainly, if I hold my hands up, not me personally, but I'm from a working class background. My dad was a fitter. My mum had a series of part-time jobs, but never a career. Looked after us, 3 kids. I'm from Middlesbrough, and the whole working class thing, certainly of our area, the whole ethos. The reason I didn't do it for a living until I'd wasted 20 years in awful jobs that I hated was that you don't get above yourself. And who do you think you are? Going to be an actor or a writer or a poet or a musician or a songwriter? You know, get back on your box, son, and go and get a proper job. We don't do ourselves any favors with that. I'm hoping that's changed in the last few years.
Well, I'm delighted to say to you that I think it has, because I'm pretty much of your generation, and I also come from a working class background. It wasn't even that you know, I wasn't to go into the creative arts. I wasn't even sort of encouraged to stay in education. I was encouraged to leave, get a job, and pay my dad's mortgage for him.
Wow.
He wasn't paying it at the time. So yeah, the thought of, you know, I mean, my dad said, "Oh well, I took art, but that was only because so I could mess about." And it, you know, it just wasn't expected that that would be something that I did. But doing these interviews, it seems like the younger generation are being encouraged, not specifically into the arts, but to fulfill their hopes and dreams wherever that lies. And it's been tremendous to see the amount of younger people that have been encouraged to go into the creative arts.
Oh, that's great. That's good. That's really good to hear, because it is worth something.
Yeah, it's worth, it's, you know, just, I mean, financially it can be very lucrative, or it can be enough to get you by. And I think if you're doing something you love and earning enough to get by, then that's enough. And yeah, this is another question that I often ask about, apart from the fact of like the end works, like you're writing a play, it's produced, you're writing a poem, you have a collection come out. What's important about the process of the creation itself, without that idea of the end product? What does the creative arts give to people, and what does it give to society more broadly?
Oh, now that's a very good question. I'm probably the worst person to ask, because I just write them. I just perform them. And if I'm being really honest, I think where it comes from with me and what it does for me is it is an opportunity to connect with people. I connect with people, and I'm lucky enough to get people sometimes write to me and say, "Oh, that poem that you wrote, that was my dad," and you know, that's worth any amount of money to me. I think the value of it is in what it does for people. Here we are in the middle of this awful pandemic, and I think people are clinging on to stuff that connects with them and to reassures them that the world is still out there and they still have a place in it. So I think that's a really important thing to people, and that's what I think get out of it. The bit that I enjoy the most is the writing of it, it's the creation of it. Quite often I'll think a poem is gone that I wrote yesterday. You know, that's almost, whether people like it or not, it's nothing to do with me. Or whether somebody thinks it works is nothing to do with me. I love the writing of it, but that's a very self-indulgent thing. And I think as a creator, you've got to give people every chance to appreciate your stuff and to like it, and to connect with it. So you do whatever it takes for them to get it.
Sure, I'm interested to know about your creative process. Is there a subject? Is there something that inspires it, or do words come first and then it finds a theme?
You know that if I could bottle this, I would do, and I could sell it, but I don't know is the answer. The poems for me, which is what I write most of these days, come from everywhere. I do have certain recurring themes. I appear, none of this is planned, I appear to be very interested in place and what it does to people's outlook. So the class thing is a very British, moreover, a very English thing. And I think that I appear to be quite interested in that, I think. So, you know, where people are from and what it does to their outlook, and then what it does to how they interact with each other. I'm big on that. And so that I find stuff every day that will, sometimes it'll be a book I'm reading, sometimes I'll hear a conversation, sometimes I'll just daydream. I've always been a dreamer. So I'll quite often, you know, these mindfulness classes that people get sent to, be the worst thing in the world for me. All my stuff is created when I'm away somewhere with the fairies. And so yeah, I'm rambling for you now, Lisa, sorry. But
no, absolutely not. So yeah, I guess this is the last question that you kind of touched on. How has lockdown affected your practice, and 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 your future plans?
It has affected them. I mean, it's in one way. In practice as a writer, certainly the going out and connecting with audiences on live performances has almost been gone. I mean, I did a one recently where I met yourself in Saltburn. That's a real rarity these days for any poet. Almost all of that's gone. Done lots of Zoom, which is fine, but it's not the same as the real thing. And in terms as an actor and forum theatre practitioner, that's slimmed down to like 10% of what it was. Now I'm lucky. I'd been fairly successful in that field for a number of years before, and I have savings I'm living off, to be frank. But yeah, it has affected it. It's been a big blow, and I know lots of artists who are struggling financially to get by, and when the furlough ends, and the any support for self-employed people ends, that's going to be tough for a lot of people. We need a new government. Am I allowed to say that?
I can't stop you saying what you need to say.
We desperately need a new government, one who actually believes in the arts and believes in supporting people rather than talking about.
I'd go further. I'd say we need an entire new system of democracy.
We need a revolution.
Proportional representation, and in fact, I do like the government's approach of seemingly forcing the general public to do the things they should be doing, because that seems to me to be forcing us towards anarchy in the true sense of the word, that we look after each other and do everything for ourselves and make them completely unnecessary.
The problem is that they encourages them, and then they don't have to put any money into it because we don't need them anymore.
Well, yes, exactly. That's the other side of it. If we're going to do everything for ourselves, then we don't need to be paying those pesky taxes anymore. Not earning enough to pay taxes. Right?
Turf the buggers out. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been lovely talking to you that night at Shanty. I'm sorry I actually missed your performance.
All right.
But it was just so great to be there. I've only been out twice since February, so it's since March, and both times it's to Shanty because I just feel so safe there. And
Julie's absolutely lovely, and they're a lovely crowd. I used to live in Saltburn, so I have a double-edged thing when I play there, because it's like going home, which is lovely. But another thing, it's like playing to your home crowd is just terrifying. You always think there's going to be somebody in the audience say, "That's a lie." But Julie is fantastic. She runs a great night, and they're a lovely crowd who get in there as well.
Absolutely. And despite the financial circumstances that she's facing, she's one of the people stepping up to keep the kids fed.
Oh, absolutely. Brilliant. And the more Julies of this world we have, then the better we'll come out the other side of this nightmare, really.
Absolutely. One thing we're really seeing at the moment is the best and the worst of humanity, and I know we've got on our side.
Getting wider, that's the problem.
Well,
as long as we're on the side of the angels, we'll be fine.
Exactly, we will eventually drag them towards the light.
Yeah.
Harry, it's been great. I hope to see
Thank you very much.
Real world soon.
Cheers, Lisa. Thank you. Take care.